Imagine you had the chance to organize your own art show with the works of the great Michelangelo himself. Sounds like a dream or something that would happen in the movies, doesn't it? Well, think again. For a group of students studying museum studies at LDM, this dream became a reality. The 11 students enrolled in the Masters of Arts Museum Studies class, Museums and the Public too, were given the first opportunity to curate an exhibition with documents and poems belonging to Michelangelo Buonarroti, the great Renaissance artist who made the David. Organized by the Lorenzo de' Medici Institute and Casa Buonarroti, the exhibit is entitled Visible Thought, the Artistic Progression of Michelangelo. It displays almost 20 works by Michelangelo that seek to trace his creative process, says Rondi Ringnes, one of the curators.
This exhibit is our project for the course. It's our final project, you could say. There's 11 students, and we've been able to co-curate this exhibit from the very beginning. It's been a really interesting experience working with 11 different minds trying to creatively put together an idea for an exhibit, first of all, and then to work all the way through the semester actually developing it all along the way and putting it together. The exhibit is called Visible Thought, the Artistic Progression of Michelangelo, and we are focusing on how his thought process really works in creating the artworks. When you look at the exhibit, you see all the way from small sketches on maybe the back of an envelope of a letter somebody sent him, and his thought process and how these designs developed all the way up until the real finished product at the end of it. So it's a look into the mind of Michelangelo, you could say. That's really what inspired us.
The 11 students initially did a lot of work in the archives at Casa Buonarroti, a house museum dedicated to Michelangelo, in order to identify and research a theme for the show.
We began by getting to really look through a lot of the collection and kind of just comb through it with our professor, of course. And that involved all of us being in the archive and our professor with the white gloves and everything pulling out the works and letting us really just look through them. And this was before we even had our concept yet, so that we could look through the works and be inspired. We had our archival time to really look through the works and learn about, also in the process, the handling of these precious archival materials that, of course, paper is very fragile when it comes to preservation, so there's no touching of it, but it's all kept in cardboard paper matting and special folders. While it was to help us be able to develop our idea, it also gave us a chance to look into the preservation process of how they're stored when they're not on display.
Students also had to think of conservation issues both in the archives and during the exhibit.
Getting to work on this project, since it is all drawings and writings and all paper, we definitely had to think about that in hanging them on the walls, because you'll notice inside the lighting is very dim, and that is in order to preserve the paper itself as well as the ink on the paper. So that was a consideration we had to think about in displaying the works. And again, this exhibit is only about 3 weeks long, so they're not exposed for a long amount of time either, and they'll go back into storage after this.
Aside from the more technical aspects of organizing the exhibition, how was it to curate a show with 11 people?
It took a lot of give and take for all of us, because we each had to write text panels, we each had to come up with names, we each had to come up with concepts, and so to lay them all out on the table and kind of choose through them and put things together and take them apart and all that was cool, and it was a great experience to have under my belt. But I think it ended up well in the end. I think we worked together, and it taught us to be patient, and it taught us to be able to voice our opinions well in order for them to be heard.
So how did the students decide which ideas to use in the end?
We each presented it, and then we each voted on our top ones. Other than ourselves, we voted on our the top idea that we liked, and then through the ideas with the most votes, we came up with similarities between them. Kind of just meshed it together from there. A lot of discussion, a lot of emails back and forth.
Class professor Marcella Morongiu also had an important role in guiding students through the curation process.
Marcella played a role in everything, but she was very helpful in guiding us, but not directing us, if that makes sense. She told us to think outside the box, and she gave us a lot of leeway, and she gave us her suggestions, but really it was up to us, and she just gave her input and approved what we had, but we came up with things and she guided us, I guess.
Lastly, Cassandra tells us about two of the works in the show that have never been shown before in the public.
So most of the Casa Buonarroti has been around for a really long time, and so all this work comes from their archives, and so it's been exhibited before, it's been lent out to the Soprintendenza around Italy, but 2 of the documents, I believe, have never been put on exhibition before, and we chose I think they're poetry, and we chose those because it was able to actually see who Michelangelo was behind the artist's facade that he has. And so it's actually pretty neat to be able to say that we were the first people who exhibited this and showed a different side of him.
Experience in curating a real exhibit, researching archives from centuries ago, and getting to see a more intimate side of Michelangelo, one of the greatest artists of the Renaissance. These are just some of the experiences that these students were able to gain through the LDM Museum Studies Masters this year. You can see the exhibit until April 29th at Casa Buonarroti on Via Ghibellina number 70. For more information, see www.casabuonarroti.it.